The U.S. Federal Reserve, Fed, admits that it cannot lower food or gas prices with hike rates alone. According to Ledn co-founder and CSO Mauricio Di Bartolomeo, Bitcoin, BTC, bear market will reverse if the Fed fails to do so. Here are Bartolomeo's expectations for crypto money. Di Bartolomeo, co-founder of Canadian-based crypto lending company Ledn, talks about rising inflation. Therefore, the only thing the Fed can do to seize control is to tighten the financial conditions and destroy the purchasing power of the consumer. Arguing that this is exactly what has been done, the name said, the idea is that less of us buying something creates competition among retailers. This limits inflation to some extent, he added. But this is far from the whole inflation narrative. Di Bartolomeo uses the following expressions. We are in an active conflict that is disrupting oil production capacity globally. Therefore, the Fed can raise interest rates as much as it wants. But it won't be able to stop the rise of oil until the problems in Russia are resolved. You're starting to see layoffs. Credit card debt is rising in the United States and savings rates have fallen. So essentially, the entire COVID effect of savings boosting and paid loans has been completely reversed. Ever since the Fed started raising rates, markets have been crashing as cryptocurrencies, stocks, and even real estate began to suffer. According to the expert, the situation points to a recession. Inflation continues to rise this year due to external factors. Di Bartolomeo also used the following statements. All other commodities come with a fuel filter. When oil is more expensive, everything becomes more expensive. It's going to be really hard for the Fed to contain inflation, as they won't be able to stop it by raising rates. It is possible that the Fed cannot stop food price inflation and gasoline inflation. So what can they do? This is where Di Bartolomeo gets more excited about the long-term Bitcoin outlook. The only other way to fix this is to either put a cap on the price of fuel, a government subsidy on the price of fuel, or a government subsidy on certain food products to control inflation, he said. Such a solution is often implemented in countries with hyperinflation problems. The U.S. may be forced to adopt some of these practices to appease the public before the November 2022 midterm elections. Bartolomeo uses the following expressions. This is not new. All my life I grew up in Venezuela on subsidized fuel and food. When the Fed realizes that it can't really do anything about inflation, the U.S. may start subsidizing some of these products. The Fed may have to reverse some rate hikes to get the economy moving again. The probability of this happening before the November midterm elections is quite high, as nobody wants to run for election with an angry population, Di Bartolomeo said. If these two things happen, the outlook for Bitcoin is positive, he added. This marks a strong bear market reversal, with Bitcoin currently trading 69% lower than its November high of $69,000. The market is trying to corner the Fed with dramatic selling in reaction to the Fed's hawkish stance. If successful, things will turn around for all asset prices. Bartolomeo used the following expressions. From my experience of how closely economic cycles are linked to political cycles, I think this should happen before November. Price-wise, I wouldn't be surprised if Bitcoin closes the year higher than where we are now. However, I don't have clear proof of how much downside we have until that happens. Also, over time, Di Bartolomeo sees Bitcoin's trading pattern become more aligned with gold than stocks. Bitcoin will eventually be separated from risky assets. This is already happening. Bitcoin will gradually start trading closer to the Nasdaq, then to the S&P. It will eventually come close to the world's reserve asset, gold. It will be a gradual progression, but I think it's already decomposing, he explained. Despite massive sales that briefly dropped the world's largest cryptocurrency to $17,000 last weekend, its anti-inflation features are a part of Bitcoin. Bartolomeo used the following expressions. Compare the price of Bitcoin before the pandemic and today with the price of gold before the pandemic and the price of gold today. I would argue that Bitcoin protects you and then some. Against gold, said Di Bartolomeo. What happens is that people are looking at the time frame from November to today. And the printing started in 2019. That's why you should look at how Bitcoin is performing starting in 2019. Di Bartolomeo also sees Bitcoin's current price of around $21,000 as a solid entry point for people with medium to long-term investment timeframes and the right risk tolerance. While the last 6 months have been volatile, Bitcoin continues to act as an important store of value even in extremely adverse market conditions. We've learned from the recent drop that not all cryptos are created equal. Di Bartolomeo also spoke about the regulations. He pointed out that when everyone makes money, no one really worries about regulation, but when things turn around, people start asking for regulation. According to the expert, the crypto community is beginning to realize that the lack of regulation is preventing many people from entering the crypto space. So regulation will help adoption. The expert used the following statements. Companies that provide lending services like us have to compete with some DeFi protocols that are not held to the same standards by which we run our operations. We tell you exactly what the risks are, how we do things. The other platform just gives you a better rate and most people don't want to read small print.